What's really good? Welcome back to another Sunday Night Live. No worries. I know we normally go live, Real Fans, Real Talk, in collaboration with the Sanchez Show. But shout out to my brother Trip Young. He was feeling a little under the weather, so I'm holding it down, flying solo. Had to make sure we still come to you guys, give you guys my reactions to what we are seeing on Wild Card Weekend. We are halfway through, almost halfway through. The Dallas game is over. Though it's not officially over, it's over. We know what's going on there. It's over. So I thought, let's start the live a little early, man. Why are we even waiting? Let's get to it. Let's discuss what we've seen through the first three games of Wild Card Weekend, and then prepare for the nightcap, which I expect to be a great game. The Rams headed to Detroit. First and foremost, make sure that you subscribe to the Sanchez Show. We go live every Friday night, 9 p.m. Shout out to my brothers Will Gordon and Vernon Brown Lee. We give you guys picks. We discuss movies. We discuss anything that's in the comment section. And then obviously Sundays, we normally go live around 7. Today, I started live a little later again because I'm flying solo. So I figured I would go live for about 30 minutes leading up to kickoff of the 8 o'clock game. But, man, we've had a lot to discuss so far during Wild Card Week. And also, make sure you subscribe to Real Fans, Real Talk. Obviously, that's the home base. Shout out to my brother Trip Young again. Trip, I wish you were feeling better, and I hope you're feeling better so we can get back to it. But let's get to what we've seen so far. It's been a crazy Wild Card Weekend. Even before the first game kicked off yesterday, we got the news of the Buffalo game being postponed against Pittsburgh. They were supposed to be the 1 o'clock game today. That gets pushed back to 4 o'clock tomorrow. There's already talk that might even get pushed back further again as the weather continues to impact that area. They haven't even been able to clear out the stadium or the field with all the snow that's there. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get to do that before tomorrow's kickoff. I also have not heard how that's affected Pittsburgh traveling in. I'm assuming Pittsburgh was already there, but that storm has been in that area for a couple of days now. So I think that Pittsburgh may have had trouble getting into Buffalo as well. Only time will tell on that. But let's get to what we've seen so far. As always, guys, feel free to comment, send in your questions, send in the topics you want to hear discussed. We're going to keep it football related unless something comes through and we decide to discuss those comments. But while we do that too, hold on. Let me put up my picks because I stand on my picks. So when we right, we right. When we wrong, we wrong. Obviously, we were wrong about the Cowboys. We're going to get to that in a second. I got my picks scrolling across the bottom. These are the same picks that I had scrolling across the bottom on Friday night show. I stand by them. I still believe in them. We got 3 more games to go to see if they are true. But let's start. We'll start with the Cowboys because that's the game that's going on right now, and it's the most shocking result so far of Wild Card Weekend. Now, if you told me that the Cowboys were going to lose, cool. I have no problem with that. All right. But if you told me they were going to get blown out in this fashion, I would have called you a liar. There was no indication that they were going to get embarrassed in this way on their home turf. The Cowboys were 8-0 this season. The Packers, most of the season, were inconsistent, though I know since Thanksgiving, they kind of got their offense rolling, especially Jordan Love, who continues to shine, and he looked great today. But their running game was inconsistent all year. And my biggest takeaway and the reason I thought the Cowboys would win this game was because I didn't think that the Green Bay Packers could out-physical the Cowboys. This season, the games that the Cowboys have lost and looked really bad in against San Francisco, against Buffalo, they were out-muscled. They were just out-physical. I didn't think Green Bay could do that. So that's why I say if you thought Green Bay could beat the Cowboys, kudos to you. I would not have disputed that. I would have listened to your debate. If you would have told me they were going to get blown out, I would have said, nah, you're probably bugging. You probably ain't watching enough of the Green Bay Packers this year. But the Green Bay Packers are rolling at the right time, and they have absolutely embarrassed the Dallas Cowboys. There's a couple numbers I want to throw at you guys so you guys can just understand how easy the Packers made this look. Granted, the Cowboys right now at this point, yeah, the second half of this game, they got their offense rolling. The score is going to look like it was a closer game or probably more competitive than what it really was. This game was out of hand very early. The Packers were up 27-0 late in the first half. They already have 48 points up on the board early in the fourth quarter. If the Packers really press the issue and if they decide to, there's still 6 minutes to go in this game, they could drop a 50-plus piece on the Dallas Cowboys, which is super embarrassing in the playoffs. But I want to just show you how easy this has been for the Green Bay Packers today. Jordan Love, as of right now, they're about to get the ball back. Again, he's probably done throwing for the day because they're up 24 points with 6 minutes to go. Jordan Love is 16 of 20 for 272 yards, 3 touchdowns. He has not been sacked. He has not thrown an interception. He has a perfect passer rating. Aaron Jones, a guy who's been on the injured list most of the season, got it going the last 2 weeks heading into the playoffs. 19 carries for 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. As a team, they've run 47 plays. They have over 400 yards of offense. They are almost averaging a first down every play. They've punted 1 time in this game. At no point has the Cowboy defense threatened or slowed down this Green Bay Packer offense. That's, to me, is the most stunning part of all this. There was so much talk about Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator from the Dallas Cowboys, possibly going back to Seattle, possibly getting a second chance at head coaching. He was once the coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and everybody knows the 28-3 game. But for all the talk about this defense and Micah Parsons and DaRon Bland and Stephon Gilmore and Dan Quinn, they're giving up damn near 50 points at home in a playoff game. And at no point did their defense make one play. Granted, Dak's got to be better. We're not letting Dak off the hook. We're going to get to Dak. The picks were bad. The second one was terrible. The first one, not so much, because Jaire Alexander pretty much just beat up Brandon Cooks and beat him to the spot. That was more on the receiver just not working back to the spot than Dak. I thought Dak was anticipating something there. Jaire jumped it, made the great play on that. Not only out physicaling Brandon Cooks, I hope I said that right, but not only beating him up to get to the spot, but then also to make the diving interception on that. The Dak's second pick was terrible. You're down 20-0. You need to drive before the half. You throw a pick six. Now you're down 27-0. But overall, Dak with limited protection because he's been scrambling a lot. They've had a couple drops in this game. The Cowboy offense got rolling in the second half of this game. It's not going to look like much because their defense did absolutely nothing. Dak is going to get his criticism for this game, as he should. Dan Quinn deserves a lot of criticism for this game, as he should. You give up 48 points as a defense coordinator on your home turf in a playoff game, you probably shouldn't have a job tomorrow morning. But really, the guy who I do not think will have a job is Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is out of Dallas. And there has been a lot of talk about Mike McCarthy. Is he a good head coach? Is he just a solid play caller who's masquerading as a head coach? There was always these issues when he was in Green Bay with him and Aaron Rodgers. He comes to Dallas. He's had some ugly playoff games as well. There's a clip that I'm going to put out, and I said this 2 years ago on Real Fans, Real Talk after a Dallas playoff loss to the 49ers at the time. And I said, Mike McCarthy is a overrated head coach, and I don't know how much more talent he needs to even succeed. In that clip, I highlighted that the Cowboys have a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, Pro Bowl caliber running game, Pro Bowl caliber receivers, Pro Bowl caliber O linemen, Pro Bowl caliber D linemen, Pro Bowl caliber cornerbacks. And yet they continue to lose early in the playoffs. At some point, that's got to fall on your head coach. You can only give the guy so much talent before he's able to win a game, before he's able to coach it up. Matt LaFleur on the other side of Green Bay, not only the job he's done with Jordan Love, but this is a guy who's been to 2 NFC championship games in Green Bay. All he has done is win since he's gotten in Green Bay. The only time they missed the playoffs was last year. In his 4 years as a head coach, they've been in the NFC championship game twice. There's another playoff game and on his resume. Mike McCarthy, on the other hand, continues to bump his head at the same spot every year. And I thought that the Cowboys winning the division, getting a home playoff game, getting 2 home playoff games, and making their road a little bit easier would have been beneficial for them. And then they come out there and completely shit the bed. Completely shit the bed. Mike McCarthy's out. And one of the big names that's going to get floated around starting the moment the final whistle of this game is over, and every analyst starts to break down what happened today in Dallas and what's next, it's going to be Bill Belichick. Mark my words. Bill Belichick is going to be at the top of that list, and it's going to be very difficult for Jerry Jones to not make the phone call to Bill Belichick to see if he's interested in his job. The Cowboys have way too much talent on paper to continue down this path of struggling in big moments and big playoff games. And again, I'm not saying that Dak isn't, responsible for some of this. Again, a bad pick six. But this is more about the defense. This is more about Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy got completely outcoached today by Matt LaFleur. Completely outcoached. They again, when I break down these numbers, like I said, Jordan Love didn't even have to break a sweat. The Green Bay Packers are out there right now playing backups for most of this fourth quarter because they've already moved on. That's how quick they put this game to bed. They just needed 3 quarters to put this game to bed and then start getting ready for next week. They don't even have to open up the rest of the playbook. They don't have to run nothing extravagant or unique the rest of the night because they've already moved on to the next game. And this got to fall on Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is going to take a large portion of this blame, and I don't think he'll be there. I think Jerry Jones will move on from him. A couple other takeaways from this game specifically: Tony Pollard, very disappointing season. Another disappointing game for him. For me, CeeDee Lamb, I thought came on in the second half, but you needed more CeeDee Lamb in the first half. You needed him there. These other guys that were supposed to be the complementary pieces never really stepped up. We didn't see much of Michael Gallup. We didn't see much of Brandon Cooks. Those are the things that if you're the Cowboys, you take away from this game and you really feel disappointed about because you thought, as you watched the Cowboys all year, that they had worked out some of the kinks of the other supporting cast members. They didn't. The Green Bay Packers sat in a lot of zone coverage. A lot of zone coverage. There's too many veteran receivers running around out there to not figure out how to beat zone coverage. So that's another thing the Cowboys are going to have to figure out moving forward. But I think Mike McCarthy, he's done there. I've said it 2 years ago. You can only give the guy but so much talent and still continue to lose in the first round and give the guy excuses. Got to be better moving forward. I think he's done. For the Green Bay Packers, hell of a job. Hell of a job by Matt LaFleur. To do what they've done to salvage this season, they had to get hot late to make the playoffs. They did that. They had to win at week 18. And that was another thing, too. I should have stuck to one of my theories. It was one of the reasons why I liked the Texans yesterday. The Texans made me look smart for picking them. It was one of the reasons why I like the Rams later tonight. Teams that have to win out, they got to win week 17, week 18 to make the playoffs. To me, are always All right, we're back. Had some technical issues, but we got it worked out. As I was mentioning, though, Mike McCarthy, I don't think he survives this. I think he's gone after this. I just don't see a scenario where he can survive after the multiple playoff letdowns that they've had. He was completely outcoached today. Matt LaFleur deserves a ton of credit for what he did with the Green Bay Packers and how he was able to turn around their season. They got off to a slow start. There were a lot of people wondering if Jordan Love was the right guy moving forward. And he found a way to make it work with Jordan Love. And they did it in spite of injuries because Christian Watson missed a lot of time this year. Aaron Jones missed a lot of time this year. They never really got much consistency from their running game. Their defense really didn't come on until Thanksgiving. So for everything that he did to be able to just get them into the playoffs, I think was tremendous. And to the point that I was making, one of the key factors in why I picked some of the underdogs this week, and I overlooked it with Green Bay. It was the reason why I picked the Texans. It's the reason why I like the Rams later today. Is when you have to win late to make the playoffs, I think it works so much in your favor compared to the teams that get to relax in week 17 and week 18. Granted, the Cowboys had to win for the division, but the Cowboys were in last week and they knew they had the Commanders. Wasn't a big deal. Wasn't a challenging game for them. So they got to relax. The Packers, on the other hand, had to win week 17 and had to win week 18 to make the playoffs. There was a certain momentum. There was a certain edge they were playing with. And you saw that today. We saw it yesterday from the Texans as well. They were another team that had to play to get in, whereas the Cleveland Browns were able to just sit back and relax week 18. And they looked rusty yesterday. And I'm going to transition to that game. Let's get to that one. Again, shout out to the Green Bay Packers, man. Great victory. Right now, they get ready to move on. They are the 7th seed, so they do go to San Fran next week. There's been a bit of a house of horrors for Matt LaFleur. He has never been able to beat Kyle Shanahan. The 2 previous NFC Championship games he went up against the 49ers, they got embarrassed in those games. So he gets an opportunity to try to make it right. We'll see if they can make it right against a San Francisco team that looks like a juggernaut. But again, San Francisco rested their starters last week, had a bye week. There is the strong possibility that San Francisco is rusty and gets off to a slow start against this Packers team that's really rolling. We got to see how that plays out. And then it makes these next 2 games very interesting because tonight's game, Rams-Lions, and then tomorrow's Tampa Bay-Philly, the winner of those 2 games are going to face off against each other. And one of those teams out of those 4 is going to somehow wind up in an NFC Championship game that most people didn't expect to see. Whether it's Detroit, whether it's the Rams, who I like a lot. And as you can see, my picks are scrolling across the bottom. These were picks that I made on Friday. So I'm putting them out there. I'm not changing anything. This is who I had to start wildcard weekend. We were 2-0 yesterday. We lose the Cowboy game today, but I'm really confident. But the Texans beating the Cleveland Browns. I liked it for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons I talked about on Friday was that C.J. Stroud did not play in that matchup a couple weeks ago. So no C.J. Stroud, but yet the Texans offense still put up 22 points on that Cleveland Brown defense. I said on Friday, I thought the Cleveland Brown defense was a little overhyped. No disrespect to them guys, but they had moments this year where they gave up a lot of points to the Rams, to the Colts. You know, a couple offensive lit them up this year, but everybody was so hyped on it because what they were doing in spite of not having their quarterback and not having their starting running back. I saw this as an opportunity for the Texans, and I like the Texans a lot in this game. As I mentioned, C.J. Stroud did not play in that first matchup, so I knew that would be different. I also thought the next part of it that would be different was that Joe Flacco wasn't great in that game. Amari Cooper was great, and I knew the Texans would focus on trying to take him away. But Joe Flacco threw 2 interceptions in their previous matchup as well. So I wasn't surprised that he threw picks yesterday. Now, did I know he would throw back-to-back pick sixes? Hell no. Nobody would have known that. But I wasn't surprised that the Texans were able to create pressure and turn the ball over. Again, I didn't think it was going to be a blowout, but I thought the Texans would win that game as home underdogs, which they did. They move on now. The AFC picture is not quite as clear because the Chiefs right now is the 3 seed, would either go to Buffalo if Buffalo wins, or they would host the Texans next week if Pittsburgh wins. That's going to be a very interesting game. And as you can see along the line, I think Pittsburgh covers the 9.5. I think Pittsburgh's going to keep that game very competitive in what is expected to be a low-scoring game that's been affected by that blizzard up there in Buffalo. So, yeah, I was not surprised by the Texans winning yesterday. Kansas City, Miami, I was not surprised by the result there. I had Kansas City minus 4.5. Miami was decimated by injuries. And there's not much you can do. I don't think they were better than the Chiefs anyway. They played early this year at a neutral site and they lost 21-14, and that was over in Europe. Even fully healthy, I don't think they're better than the Chiefs. But when you look at the amount of injuries and the quality players that they were missing, there was no way they were going to Kansas City to win that game. -9 at kickoff with the wind chill. It felt like -27. You're talking about a Miami team that starting running back was banged up. The number 2 receiver was banged up. Their best 2 pass rushers, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, were hurt, and they were out of that game. Their best 2 linebackers, Jerome Baker and Van Ginkel, were out of that game. Their second best corner, Xavier Howard, was out of that game. So many injuries on this team. There was no way they were going to go to Kansas City and win that game. But when you throw in the elements, I mean, that was the easiest money of the weekend, I think. The easiest money of the weekend. Kansas City winning that game. And so now we wait. We wait to see what happens later tonight with Detroit and the Rams. I like the Rams a lot. I think the Rams win this game. I think the Rams are super underrated. I think people are focused too much on what the Rams started their season look like as opposed to how they finished their season. They went 7-1 in their last 8 games. Their only loss in that stretch was the overtime loss in Baltimore, where they lost on a punt return in overtime. Other than that, they beat everyone they had to beat down the stretch. The 49er game aside, because the 49ers didn't play their starters, but neither did the Rams. The Rams knew they were in too, and they let guys relax. The Rams are really good. And I think that the Lions on the other side will feel a certain sense of pressure. Playing at home, one of the first home games in, I believe, over 20 years in Detroit. Jared Goff having to go up against his former team and a head coach that knows him very well. He spent 5 years with Sean McVay. Sean McVay knows how to blitz him. Sean McVay knows how to attack him. And Sean McVay is going to know what to take away from him. That's going to be a big aspect. And I think that's going to be one of the things that people talk about after this game. I think the Rams are going to look really, really good in this game. And the Rams, again, are super undervalued at this point. They win today, they get the winner of that Philadelphia-Tampa Bay game. And then I think people are going to start talking about the Rams possibly being in the NFC Championship game. So I like the Rams a lot of balance on that team. Good running game, 2 good receivers, Matthew Stafford. Defense is still young, but it's good. And we can't forget, this is a team that won a Super Bowl 2 years ago as well. So we're not talking about some upstart team that hasn't been in these moments. They were just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Last year was a down year for them, and that was really due to injuries. Other than that, this team is really good. Sean McVay is very good head coach. I expect them to go to Detroit and beat an inexperienced Detroit team. And don't be surprised if you start to see Detroit get very tense as that game goes on. I think early on, the crowd is going to be into it. Detroit is going to try to take some shots down the field. Detroit is going to try to open up the game with some play action. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if early on you see them take some shots and try to stretch out that Rams defense. But if that doesn't work and they get behind early, which I think they will, then you're going to start seeing a tense crowd who for the first time is hosting a playoff game and could be seeing their season slip away. I like the Rams a lot in that one. Shout out to my brother Trip Young again. As I mentioned, we normally go live every Sunday, 7 p.m. Real Fans, Real Talk. Tonight, I am flying solo. Trip Young is a little bit of under the weather, but we're going to get back to it next week. Also, make sure you guys subscribe to Real Fans, Real Talk and The Sanchez Show. If you're watching this over on YouTube, make sure you guys subscribe. I do a Friday night live every Friday, 9 p.m. sharp. Shout out to my brothers Will Gordon and Vernon Brown Lee. We will be back next Friday again with picks for the divisional round. We'll have some more topics. If you missed last week's episode, it's up on the YouTube. Not only did we do picks, we had some NBA talks because the comment section was going crazy that night. And then we did top hood movies of all time, which turned into a hilarious episode. Again, shout out to Will and Vernon. My picks for tomorrow. I'll give you some analysis on them. As you can see them scrolling along the bottom line. That Pittsburgh game obviously got pushed to tomorrow. I still like Pittsburgh to cover the 9.5. I think that's a very good spot for them. Buffalo on paper is the better team. But Buffalo, similar to the Cowboys today, are in a very tough spot. Their window is closing. Buffalo's got to look impressive tomorrow. They can't just go out there and win. They're going to try to look impressive. And I expect Mike Tomlin to have his team ready. Don't be surprised if special teams plays a factor in that game. Keep in mind, they're in the middle of a blizzard. So field positions are going to be big. The kicking game will be very important. I think Pittsburgh has figured some things out their running game with Najee Harris. I like Pittsburgh to keep it within the 9.5, and I would not even be surprised if Pittsburgh wins that game. But for the gambling purposes, I'm going to say just take the 9.5. Buffalo, on the other hand, has to win this game. Sean McDermott's job might be on the line. Similar to Mike McCarthy, if the Buffalo Bills lose, I think Sean McDermott could be out of a job. And that would be another location that people will talk about Bill Belichick possibly going to. So there are a couple really good teams that if they don't make it out of this weekend, I expect them to fire their head coach. Buffalo is one of them. But yeah, I expect that to be a very ugly, old school type football game in the snow. Close score. Pittsburgh keeps it close. They keep it within the 10. They cover. Buffalo may win it. Pittsburgh will cover. Then the Monday night game, I got Tampa Bay covering the 3 points. Philly right now, I don't know what to make of Philly. And I don't think anyone has a really good read on. And I think there's a part of us that want to believe they are the team that was closer to the Super Bowl team from last year, but they haven't shown that in a few months. This is a team that is struggling right now. Injuries are playing a big part in it. A.J. Brown will not play tomorrow. We know about Jalen Hurts' finger. This defense has not looked good in about 2 months. But also, more importantly, coming off of beating the Buffalo Bills, when the Eagles had that good stretch and they beat Kansas City and they beat Buffalo in back-to-back weeks, and everybody thought, all right, Philly's good. They're going to be the best team in the NFC. Since that point, they've gone 1-5. We know they didn't win the division, obviously. They had the ugly game against the Giants last week. The only quarterback they'd beaten in those 6 games that they played was Tommy DeVito. That defense is looking bad. The offense has not looked in sync for quite some time. For some reason, they don't seem to run the ball the way they once did. I know DeAndre Swift ended the season with 1,000 yards, but they don't seem to run the ball and be as impactful as they once were. So I like Tampa Bay to cover the 3. Now, again, Philly could win this game, and I would not be surprised if Philly wins this game. But I just think Tampa Bay +3 is a safer bet right now. Baker Mayfield is a little banged up. We got to see how that's going to play into that game. But I think Mike Evans could have a big day against the secondary. I also think Chris Godwin could have a big day against the secondary. And it's one of the games that I just don't trust Philly. Maybe Philly is who they've shown us to be over the last month and a half. Maybe they're just a team that peaked very early and they ain't got it anymore. Something's going on in that locker room. Something's going on with that team, and they have not looked the same since they beat the Buffalo Bills a month and a half ago. Again, 1-5 in their last 6. So that doesn't sit well with me. Philly's got some real issues. And it's going to get very interesting in the NFC. Very interesting. Because with the Cowboys losing, obviously the 49ers, their odds to come out of the NFC jump up even higher. Everything's got to go through San Fran. People were already worried about having to play San Fran anyway. But if you're telling me that after this weekend, possibly the Cowboys and the Eagles would be out of the picture, you got to think the odds of the 49ers coming out of the NFC jump up even higher now, because then there's a massive talent gap between the 49ers and everyone else. 49ers ain't going to overlook Green Bay. I'm not overlooking Green Bay either, because they're hot right now, and that's going to be a good game. But Kyle Shanahan has dominated that matchup against Matt LaFleur. So I don't think Kyle Shanahan, there's anything that Matt LaFleur can bring out that Kyle Shanahan hasn't already seen. Matt LaFleur is going to have to adjust. He's going to have to do something different to change the outcome against the 49ers, because the 49ers have dominated the Green Bay Packers since Matt LaFleur was the head coach and since Kyle Shanahan has been the head coach of the 49ers. Tonight, though, Dallas Cowboys. Y'all shit the bed. Y'all got beat up on. And it could have been worse. The Packers really, really could have did y'all dirty if they wanted to. They took it easy late in the fourth. They had 48 points early in the fourth quarter. That game got out of control. Dan Quinn, the defense coordinator, I do not think will be there. Mike McCarthy, the head coach, I do not think will be there. The new cycle will start as of tomorrow. Bill Belichick to Dallas is going to be the leading headline. Everyone's going to wonder, and I think Jerry Jones will make that call. Bill wants the job. We got to see. We got to also keep in mind there's a lot of factors. I don't know if Bill is going to want that Dallas job, because then it's going to also bring up the conversations of, is he's following in the footsteps of Bill Parcells. Parcells took that job at one time and try to resurrect the organization. Would Bill Belichick want to follow in the footsteps of Bill Parcells? Would he prefer a younger team that is much more moldable, like an Atlanta Falcons, a team like that? Would he prefer maybe a team that's probably a little more Super Bowl ready made, as I mentioned, like the Buffalo Bills, if they lose tomorrow? Because I think the Buffalo Bills are closer to Super Bowl contention than the Dallas Cowboys. So Bill's going to have his options. But more importantly, the Dallas Cowboys are going to be calling Bill Belichick. I don't think that Mike McCarthy keeps his job. I don't think Dan Quinn keeps his job. There's going to be a new staff coming into Dallas. There's going to be some changes. It's a high-profile team, a lot of high-profile players over there. And for them to consistently lose this early in the playoffs is an issue. And as I highlighted, I'm going to drop the clip, because I said it, and I feel like it might have been 2 years to the day, 3 years to the day, when the Cowboys lost to the 49ers a couple years ago in the playoffs. And I said, how much more talent does Mike McCarthy need to be able to succeed? I don't know how much more talent they need. They have Pro Bowl caliber players at every level of this team. And it's been that way for about 3 years now. And yet they cannot get over the hump. So only time will tell what they do there. Again, tonight, I do like the Rams. They're +3. They're still showing us +3. I like them not only to cover, but I do like them as outright winners. They were one of my stronger picks for this week. I like that team a lot. I think people are sleeping on them, but we'll see. So far, we're 2-1 wild card weekend. We were 2-0 yesterday as we had the Texans and the Chiefs. Obviously, we take the loss with the Cowboys today, but I expect the Rams to win. I expect to close out tonight being 3-1, heading into tomorrow liking both underdogs. We'll see. I'm going to wrap up now. We're at 7:52. We're a couple minutes away from the 8 o'clock kickoff. Again, make sure you subscribe to The Sanchez Show. I will be live again on Friday, 9 p.m. sharp, with picks for divisional round, as well as some other topics, and we'll get some questions going. Tonight, slow night, because, again, normally Trip Young and I go at 7 o'clock, but he's feeling under the weather. Shout out to Trip. Trip, get better, bro. We're going to get back to it real soon. Again, appreciate all the supporters. Make sure you guys subscribe to not only The Sanchez Show on YouTube, but also Real Fans Real Talk. If you don't already, make sure you follow me across all social media platforms. Legend in 2 Games, completely spelled out. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the games tomorrow. Happy holidays. Enjoy the holiday tomorrow. And I will see you guys on Friday, man. I'm out of here.